Joe Fortenbaugh here for OddsShark, where it's time to talk college football. Specifically, it's time to talk big game bets. Let's begin in the Big Ten. Number 2, Ohio State traveling to number 13, Penn State. Ohio State laying a big number here, 15.5 with a total of 61. I'm a graduate of Penn State. Been a Penn State fan my whole life. Half unit wager on the Buckeyes. Hey, money's not biased. Money doesn't graduate from a school. Humans graduate from schools. Maybe even dogs in certain movies, and babies and little kids, but that's neither here nor there. Gonna play a half unit on the Buckeyes in this matchup. Penn State hasn't beaten anyone of note this season. I know what you're saying. Fortenbaugh, you were on Minnesota last week. That was a terrible pick. Yeah, I'm going back to the well and fading Penn State. One big game this year. It was against Michigan. They lost that game by 24 points. And this is a home game for Penn State, but it's not a whiteout at night. It's a noon Eastern kick. You'll have a good crowd. You will not have an elite crowd. We all know what Ohio State can do on offense. CJ Stroud is your odds-on favorite to win the Heisman Trophy. The key is the Buckeye defense. Okay, last year, 29th in scoring defense, 29th in opponent yards per play. They bring in Jim Knowles, the former defensive coordinator at Oklahoma State, completely turns it around. So far this season, top 5 in both scoring defense and opponent yards per play. Smaller wager, but gonna lay it on the Buckeyes. Big game bet, number 2. Big situation is number 3, Tennessee, playing host to number 19, Kentucky. Tennessee's laying 12.5 points, total of 63.5. This game opened 14, has been bet down to 12.5. I'm following the steam here. I will be playing Kentucky. All right? We don't need Kentucky to win this game. And most of you know that. We're taking 12.5 points. We don't need them to win. You know what we need? Be down 17 late in the game and then score a touchdown to backdoor it. Does that sound that unreasonable? Kentucky quarterback Will Levis is healthy. Kentucky's had 2 weeks to get ready for this game. They're coming off a bye. All right, so again, quarterback healthy, rested, prepared. We don't need to win. We just need to keep it within 12.5. Tennessee's offense, we know all about Hendon Hooker, all the scoring, everything they can do. Defensively, 131st out of 131 teams in pass defense. Dead last in pass defense. They are also 44th in opponent yards per play and 35th in scoring defense, with a game against Georgia on deck. I don't know if they necessarily get caught looking ahead because Kentucky's a tough opponent, but they could. So file that away again. Down 17 late, slide in through the back door, boom, we cover our big game bets. As we flip the page, ladies and gentlemen, to the crystal ball that is Joe Fortenbaugh's mind. I want to look at the futures market. I want to draw your attention to the Oregon Ducks. It's time to make some bets on the Ducks, okay? 2 bets in particular. Number 1, Oregon is currently plus 155 to go over 10.5 wins. In addition to that, plus 650 to make the playoffs. Those are 2 wagers I made this week, so I wanted to pass it along to you. Currently 6-1. The handicap's gonna run together here, so stay with me. Currently 6-1 with 5 games to play, all right? 5 games. Here's who they're gonna play. And for us to get over 10.5 wins and to get in the playoff, we're gonna have to run the table, 5 wins. They're laying 15 at Cal this week. Seems like a pretty good situation. Then they are at an awful Colorado team. More on them in a bit. Colorado's 6 losses this year have come by an average of 30 points per game. Okay? Then they're gonna return home, tougher game. They're gonna host 6-2 Washington. They're still gonna be a favorite there. Following week, they're gonna host Utah. Tough game as well, but remember, Utah, 2 big games this season on the road. Florida and UCLA, they got beaten both those games. Utah at home, very different than Utah on the road. And then finally, the Oregon State game. And if we win this many going into this, we can hedge if we want. We can take the points with Oregon State and create a situation where maybe Oregon wins but doesn't cover, and boom, we go over 10.5 wins, and we end up winning the Oregon State bet. File that away, but Oregon State 6-2, 2 big games this year. USC, Utah, lost them both. I think they can run the table. And if they run the table, they go to the conference tournament game, they win that. Suddenly they're a 1-loss team who lost in week 1 to Georgia, the defending champions who could be undefeated. Plus 650 to get in with that resume? Very interesting. Quarterback Bo Nix, 25-1 to win the Heisman as well. So those are 2 bets I made. I want to file those away. Clemson to make the playoff, by the way, minus 165. That implies a 62% probability. I think it's higher than that. I would still make that bet. On the bye, then they're at Notre Dame, who just lost to Stanford. Notre Dame not very good. Win that game, host Louisville, host Miami, who's terrible, host South Carolina. Go to the ACC title game, win that, you're in. Minus 165, I still think that's cheap. So I'd go ahead and make that wager as well. Wagers you might want to consider avoiding this week, trap games. One big one to focus on, TCU. It feels like we're talking about them every week. Love TCU. They've been fantastic. But here we go. 5 big games in a row, and now you're going to little old West Virginia. On the road, laying 7.5, market starting to move to 7. West Virginia, not very good. Not very good. I can just tell you that there are some pros out here in Vegas who have been snatching up the 7.5. I'm not going to be surprised if the entire market moves to 7. Whether or not it moves to 6.5 is a different story. But this is the game everyone's been looking at. TCU continues to cook. They continue to win big games. But remember something important. Their bye was very early in the season. It was after like 2 weeks. It was in September. This is their 6th straight game in a row, and they've all been big. The team could start to wear out. And on the horizon, Texas, Baylor, potential trip to the playoff. Easy to overlook a very sloppy West Virginia team. I personally will take the 7.5. I have taken the 7.5. I'm going to play West Virginia. It's not a huge bet because every time I've gone against TCU this year, I've gotten burned. When I've been on them, I've won. Feels like you would just stay on them, but wanted to pass that along. Couple other potential trap games. We already talked about Tennessee looking ahead to Georgia. Although it is Kentucky, it's a relatively big game, and I think game day is going to be there. Or Herbie and Fowler, I should say. Game day is not going to be there. Herbie and Fowler are calling the game. So it's a big game for ESPN, ABC. So I don't know if you get caught looking ahead on that. Notre Dame can't afford to overlook anybody. They do have Syracuse, who's only got 1 loss, but Clemson's on deck. So file that away as well in your handicapping, but not as dramatic as the TCU situation. A dramatic situation that it's unfolding, the People's Parlay. We have yet to win one of these. Let's go, people. Let's go. It's early, it's only been a few weeks, but here's how it worked if you haven't partaken in any of this yet. The OddsShark Twitter account, as well as my account, middle of the week, we throw out a tweet. We ask you, just give us your best play. College, pro, whatever. Side, total, whatever. Give us your best play. Something that we can put into a parlay. The ones that get liked the most, we do it. And then we talk about it on Thursday. We mention your, by the way, ridiculous Twitter handles. At Justin14182246X. We mention them. We shout them out. And if this thing ends up hitting, we're going to send you a bunch of swag. It's like no effort. Just throw a pick in there. Take any of the following picks, by the way, if you'd like, because it's time for college football rapid fire. Lay 21.5 with Michigan over Michigan State. To Michigan State. This is a huge revenge game. I really don't care what the number is. And I know, people will look at that and say, it's not really the way you're supposed to handicap. Don't care. Michigan State beat Michigan last year. Harbaugh has this game circled. He was talking about it at Big Ten media days, without even talking about Ohio State. And that's just tactics, I know. But he's talking about this game. Michigan State this season, what are they? They're 3-4. They're 0-2 on the road. Those 2 road games, they've gotten outscored by about 13 points per game. Neither of those teams, Washington and Maryland, are on the caliber of Michigan. Michigan's going to put it on them. At home, 2 weeks to get ready for this game. Michigan State's had a bye too, but Michigan gets 2 weeks to get ready here. They got Rutgers on deck, so it's not a look-ahead spot. I think they're just going to put it on Sparty for what happened last year. And Sparty's down. You can get them. So keep an eye on the weather, but I'm going to lay the 21.5 there. I will take 2.5 with Marshall over Coastal Carolina. Styles make fights. Coastal Carolina, spread option. They love to run the ball. Marshall's defense, fantastic. Fantastic against the run, fantastic in general. Top 25 in opponent yards per play and scoring defense. They should be able to get stops. Problem is the Thundering Herd aren't very good on offense, but they do love to run the ball. Coastal Carolina not good defending the run. This game was 3, it's down to 2.5. I'm taking Marshall. Number 3, laying 13 with a really bad Arizona State team because they're playing an even worse Colorado team. We mentioned this earlier. Colorado's 1-6, and in those 6 losses, they have lost by an average of 30 points per game. This is a spot for the Sun Devils to try to get a win if they're going to scramble for bowl season here. Put it on them. All right, it's been a frustrating season. They canned Herm Edwards. Go out there and have some fun at Colorado's expense. And then finally, another ugly one. Texas A&M plus 2.5 over Ole Miss. A&M has been brutal, fully admitting that. But this game was up around 3 and it dipped. Why? Bad spot for Ole Miss. Huge game at LSU last week. They come up short. Perfect season ruined. Next game on the schedule is going to be Alabama. Probably looking ahead there. Here's a lousy A&M team, but you got to go to them. You got to go to Kyle Field. It's a night game. I don't like it at all. Game stinks of a potential trap as well. We could have put this in trap games. We're going to take the 2.5 with Texas A&M. Thank you for watching. Best of luck. We'll catch you later in the week for OddsShark's NFL Preview.